Using the SLCD screen layout utilities. The SLCD screen layout utilities are used to define SLCD screen elements and to output a screen setup macro. These utilities allow the user to use a program called GIMP to design an SLCD screen layout. GIMP is a free image manipulation program that you can download from the internet. In this video, you will learn how to use the SLCD screen layout utilities within GIMP. This video will not attempt to teach you how to use GIMP itself. This video assumes that GIMP has been previously installed on your system. You can download GIMP from www.gimp.org. This video also assumes that the SLCD screen layout utilities has been downloaded from our webpage. You can download that from www.reachtech.com/tutorials. The commands used by the SLCD screen layout utilities are defined in detail in our software reference manual. That's available for download from www.reachtech.com/downloads. The first thing we need to do is install the scripts and the example bitmaps. I've downloaded the zip file from www.reachtech.com/tutorials. If you double-click on the zip file, you'll see two folders, one marked bitmaps, one marked scripts. The scripts folder contains all the Python scripts that implement the SLCD screen layout utilities. To install the scripts, click on My Computer, click on the C drive, click on Documents and Settings. If you're using Windows 7, you'll go to C:\Users instead of Documents and Settings. In this folder, click on Your folder. In this case, for me, it's Ralph. Inside that, you'll see a .gimp folder. It'll have the version number on the folder name. So in this case, it's GIMP-2.8. Double-click on that folder. Then double-click on the Plugins folder. In my case, the folder is empty because I don't have any other scripts installed. If you've installed other packages, you may have other Python scripts here. To install the scripts for the utility, go back to your scripts folder from the zip file, select all the .py files, and copy them into your plugins folder. That completes the installation. Next, you're going to want to put all the bitmap files somewhere convenient. I'm going to just copy the bitmaps folder onto my desktop for use later. The next thing we want to do is test the installation. Start GIMP. Now, if your GIMP window is not in a single window like this, for instance, if the tools and the other panel are in separate areas on the screen, you can go to Windows and click Single Window Mode, and that will put all of the panels together in one window like mine is showing. To test the installation, go to File, Create, ReachTech. You should see menus for bitmap, button, hotspot, meter, etc. If you see all of these submenus, you know the installation is correct. After installing the scripts, the first thing you want to do is create a screen image. You go to File, Create, ReachTech, SLCD. Inside there you'll see options for Custom or Select. Custom allows you to select a screen image based on pixel height and width. Select allows you to pick a screen size based on the standard product size. We're going to use Select. Inside there you'll see options for the various screen sizes and landscape or portrait mode for the modules that support that. We're going to pick a 4.3-inch landscape module. There's also a browse window to select the bitmap folder where you've stored your bitmaps. We'll click on that and then browse to the location of the bitmaps that we added. They're on our desktop and we put them in a folder called bitmaps. Now you hit OK and you'll see an image the size of the screen. If the color of the screen and the color of the padding area in GIMP are too similar, like you can't make out the difference between the colors, go to View, Padding Color, and select a different color. Mine's fine the way it is, so I'm going to leave it alone. Once you've got your screen image loaded, you can go to the Layers window. You'll notice the name of the layer is Main Screen, preceded with 2 slashes. The slashes are the comment style within the SLCD macros. Once you have your screen defined, you can start adding items to the screen. We'll start with a bitmap. Go to File, Create, Reach Tech, and Bitmap. In there you'll see 2 selections, one for bitmap, one for windowed bitmap. These reflect the 2 different types of commands you can use to add a bitmap to the screen, and they are defined in detail in the SLCD reference manual. We're going to start by adding a simple bitmap. This will pop up a window where you get a file browser and an edit box. The file browser allows you to pick a bitmap from the folder you selected when you defined the screen. Notice that the bitmap file names all have numbers prepended to them. This is following the recommendations of adding the bitmap number to the file name so the bitmaps can be easily sorted by BMP load. We'll select the fractal egg bitmap and click Open, and then we'll give it a name. In this case, fractal egg. You click OK. The scripts will place the bitmap image on a new layer in GIMP, and the image will be in the upper left-hand corner. You can now use any of the standard GIMP utilities, such as a move utility, to move the bitmap around on the screen. You'll notice that the layer name in GIMP is the command that's used in the SLCD to draw the bitmap, and the token coords is used as a placeholder for the X and Y coordinates will be placed when the output script is written. We'll add a second bitmap so you can see how that works. And we'll just pick the same one, give it a different name. Again, you can move this around wherever you want. At this point, you can use other GIMP utilities such as the Align tool to align, for instance, the tops of these 2 items. You can also delete layers as easily if you make a mistake. We'll add another bitmap, and in this case we'll choose one that maybe we didn't want right at this point in time, and we'll give it a different name and then click OK. If you want to delete an image that you just added, or any image, you can just go to the layer window, right click, and say delete layer, and that layer will be removed along with the bitmap image. At this point in time, it'd probably be a good idea to save your work in progress. So you go to File, Save As, browse to the folder where you want to keep the image, and give it a name, and leave the .xcf extension, that's a GIMP file format, and click Save. At this point in time, if you were to exit GIMP and then restart later, you would be put back into your image the same way you left it, and you could just continue adding items to the screen. Next, we're going to add some buttons to our image. We'll go to File, Create, Reach Tech, Button. Again, we see items that reflect the commands available. In this case, center text, latching, or momentary. We're going to start with a center text. The pop-up gives you the ability to add data for all of the parameters in the command. The first one is the button index, which must be unique among all buttons. The next set of radio buttons is to select which type of button it is. Again, all of these types are defined in the SLCD reference manual. There's edit boxes for the text in the unpressed position and the text in the pressed position, and then browse windows for the bitmaps for the 2 button states, and lastly an edit box for the nickname. We're going to start with button index 1, and we'll use a standard notify on press button type. We'll give it text in the unpressed position of up and in the pressed position of down. We'll browse to the appropriate bitmaps for each state. In this case it's button up. And again notice that the bitmap file name is prepended with the index of the bitmap. It's important that all of these file names have the index prepended so that BMP load can load them in order, and so the scripts can use the index in the command. So now we'll browse for the press state bitmap and we'll give it a name. Let's call this button Start, and then you click OK. Again, you'll notice that the scripts have created a new layer, and they use the command as the layer name, and they use the token chords as a placeholder for the X and Y location. Again, you can use any of the GIMP utilities to move the button into the right location. We're going to make an array of buttons on the bottom, so we'll just put that there for now. And then let's go back and add a second button, also of center text. It's up to you to maintain the button index, so the first thing you do when you go into any of these windows is just change to the next index. Let's make this button a typematic button, and we'll call this, say, typematic up and typematic down. We use the same two images for the button, and we'll call this maybe faster. This is purely a convenience name for your use, and we'll move this in that general vicinity. Let's go ahead and add another button. This time we'll pick a latching state button. Again, first thing you do, set the button index. Now you notice the types available here are different because it's a different type of command. Latching initial states, we'll just leave it the default. And then we'll call this one latching up and latching down. The DX and Y0 and the DX and Y1 parameters are the text offsets from the corner of the button. Again, you get the up and down bitmaps, and we'll call this one latching. And again, we'll put it in the general vicinity that we want. And last, we'll go back and add a momentary style button. First thing you do is change the index. We're going to leave it as a standard type. We're going to leave the text as is. We won't change the offsets. Again, we use the same bitmaps. And we'll give it a different name. Now that you notice the text is not showing on the buttons, it's just the images because we're concerned about placement. If you want to see which button is which, over in the layer area, you can just click on the button and you'll see in the layer area that button gets highlighted. So for instance, in this case you can see this button is button 1, button 2, 3, 4, as per the indexes that we gave them. Likewise, if you click on an item here, you can see the focus change to the layer that we selected. Again, at this time, you can use the alignment tool. Let's say we want to align all of these buttons to the same height that the first button is. We just select all of these and then align bottoms, and there you are. Now we're going to add a couple of hotspots to the bitmap. Go to File, Create, Reach Tech, Hotspot. You'll see items for a regular hotspot, a typematic hotspot, and an XY hotspot. We're going to add a regular hotspot. As with buttons, you need to manage the hotspot index. They start at 128, so this one's fine. The width and height happen to be the same value as the bitmap that we added earlier, so we're going to leave those alone. And you can also select options for invisible or no beep on the SLCD5. And then of course there's the nickname. We'll go ahead and leave everything alone and give it a name of hotspot and click OK. Now hotspots don't have an image associated with them, so the scripts present a hotspot in a slightly grayed out color. And you can use the standard GIMP tools to move that around. We're going to put one in that general area, and now we're going to add a second hotspot. We'll again add a regular hotspot. We have to update the hotspot index. This one we'll make invisible, and we'll give it a nickname of hotspot invis. And we'll put it down in this general area here. Now what you can do is use the alignment tool. Say you want to align everything bottom-wise to this row of buttons. You select the target you want to align to, and then the other items that are going to be aligned. Click Align Bottom. Now what I want to do is move the bitmaps over the hotspots as a way of showing where the hotspots are. So I'm going to click the first hotspot and then the associated bitmap, and I'll align their centers and do the same with the other hotspot and its bitmap. Align the centers. Let's go ahead and look at the other hotspot options. Reach Tech hotspot. Typematic hotspot looks very similar. It doesn't have a no beep option, but everything else looks the same. We're not going to add one of these. And then the last part is the XY hotspot. Again, it looks very similar. It gives you only the options that are applicable to that command. So now I want to take a couple minutes and just explain the layer names and the commands used in there. What you can see highlighted is the layer for the button we added for button 3. Now the layer name is the command that will be used to define that item on the screen. The BD is button define, the 3 is the button index that we gave it. Coords is the placeholder for the X and Y coordinates. That will get filled in with actual values when the output script is generated. The 2 is the type that we selected. In this case it's a latching button. And then the L up and L down strings are the text fields that we supplied. These 4 zeros are the delta X and Y values that we didn't specify, so they're 0. And the 02 and the 03 are the bitmap indexes that will be used for the button unpressed and pressed states. These numbers are taken directly from the file names of the bitmaps that we selected. In this case, we used 02 button up for one state and 03 button down for the other state. The scripts extract these numbers from the start of the file name and use them as the numbers in the command. That's where you have the desired index in front of the file name. At the end of the command you'll see a double slash, and that indicates the start of a comment. Again, as we said before, the @ sign indicates a nickname, and the nickname field is whatever you entered on the form for this item. The next thing we're going to do is add a meter to our image. Go to File, Create, Reach Tech, Meter, and select Meter. The pop-up for the meter option is too large for the recording window, so go through it in sections. The meter index is similar to the button index in that you manage the value. The file browser allows you to pick a bitmap image for the meter background. There are edit boxes for the minimum, maximum, and initial needle value, the minimum and maximum needle angle. There's a color chooser for the needle color. We're going to leave it red. there's some edit boxes for the X and Y pivot point for the needle. And then there's a set of 10 X and Y coordinate pairs that are used to define the outline of the needle. A value of 99999 indicates an unused coordinate pair. I'm going to add some values I worked out earlier. And then I'm going to give it a nickname of RPM. And then the OK button is off screen. So the meter is drawn in the upper left-hand corner of the new layer, and the meter needle is drawn in an outline form in the color you picked. On the SLCD, it'll be a solid polygon. Also here, you'll see the needle pivot point, but on the SLCD that will not be visible. You can also see that I've managed to obscure some buttons, so I'm just going to move those out of the way somewhere convenient for now. When we're done adding items to the screen, we'll rearrange things to make it look nicer. The last thing we're going to add is a slider. Go to File, Create, Reach Tech, Slider, and pick Slider. The slider index value is like the button index value in that you manage the value. You do need to be aware that the slider index range and the hotspot index range overlap, and so you need to make sure the values you pick are unique among the two sets. The background bitmap chooser lets you pick the file to be used for the background. We're going to pick a vertical slider. The knob bitmap lets you pick the bitmap used for the knob. Like I said, we're picking a vertical, and the bottom is the low value, and then we pick the high and low values. I'm using the same values that were used on the meter that we added recently, and I'm giving it a nickname of slider. Now, a slider is a little bit unique in that the knob and the background are separate layers. This allows you to move the knob into the right position on the background, and then the scripts will generate the proper coordinate instructions in the slider define command. I'm going to move the slider into approximate position. Same with the knob. Have a button in the way again. I'm going to use the GIMP alignment utility to align the knob to the background. For simplicity, I'm just centering them. Now that we have all the items on our screen, we're going to align the buttons so they look a little better. We want to align them just button 1, 2, 3, 4 in a simple grid. The first thing we need to do is identify which button is which. To do this, you can click on the button, and then in the Layers window, you'll notice that the button you've clicked is highlighted. In this case, we click button 3. We're looking for button 1. There's 2. There's 1. So we're going to select the Move tool, and then just move the button into the approximate position we want. Now we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, so we need button 2. It's right about there. And then here's button 3, and then button 4. So I've purposely skewed these a bit so you can see how the Move tools work. You can use the Align tool to align the buttons. We're going to align the tops of these buttons to start with. So you click the first button that you want to align to, and then you click the button you want to align, and then align tops. Next we're going to align the first button and the button underneath it. We'll align that button with the fourth button, and the fourth button with the one above it. This gives you an easy way to align your buttons in a grid. Now that we have everything on the screen the way we want it, we're going to generate the macro file that contains the commands to generate this screen on the display module. You go to File, Create, ReachTech, Output Macro. The pop-up contains a browse window that lets you select either the default file specified or another existing file if you have one. If you don't have an existing file, the macros will use slcd setup macro.txt. So you click the file and then click OK. The script will generate commands taken from the layer names in each case, substituting the token chords with the current XY locations of each item. When you download that macro file and all the bitmaps used in the macro file, and then run that macro on the SLCD, you will get the same screen that you see in the GIMP window. You can find source files for these tutorials at www.reachtech.com/tutorials. If you have any questions, give our team a call at 503-675-6464 or send an email to techsupport@reachtech.com.